Then a lot of new age entrepreneurs who are trying to do things like drop shipping. For example, a 16, 17 years old kid who has like some 15,000 followers. She sold scrunchies worth more than 80,000 rupees last month. Now that's the audience which is like middle of the funnel, who has the understanding of how the digital marketing works. Because setting up the store is one part and being capable of driving the orders is another part.
Hello and welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast. I'm Roshan Karyappa. Dukaan is a storefront for folks who want to sell everything from cakes, cookies, hearts, supplies, even transport services. It's super complicated to productize something like this. So many different personas, so many different use cases. But Dukaan has done fabulously well. They're about a couple of years old, clocking about $2 million in ARR. And they recently raised funding of about $11 million. I spoke to Sumit Shah, who is the CEO and founder, on his experience of building this innovative business and how digital has become such a key lever for small businesses, especially post-COVID. This was a fun conversation, a lot of insights in here. So do check out this episode of the Startup Operator Podcast with Sumit Shah. Hey, Sumit, welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast. Thank you so much for making the time.
Hey, Roshan, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so good to finally connect with you. Sumit, you have a very interesting experience, and I want you to go back to 2014, right? When you were running this very successful services agency, you were doing marketing, SEO, etc., right? And, coincidentally, 2014, 2015 was when I was also running an agency, and I was also trying to do the pivot from services to products, right? And my pivot didn't really go well. And I know a bunch of others, pretty much every services company at that point of time was looking to pivot to product, but very, very few of them really managed that pivot, right? Given that you successfully managed that pivot and have come a far way from that, right? So what do you see are some of the core principles for managing that pivot from services to products very successfully?
So when I was running the services, the biggest problem was attending all the meetings and calls at their convenience. Like for example, we used to work with one of the biggest QSR chain from India, and the marketing manager was expecting me to come for a meeting every single week and explain him how the SEO works. Now, as you know, like SEO is like far way different as compared to how your performance marketing is, like where you see clearly how many clicks you're getting and how many, the conversion rates and ROI and everything. It is not visible in case of SEO, right? Like it is a lot of experimentation and experience kind of thing over there. So that's the part which I hated. And when you start working at like certain scale, the whole value is mapped with your face, right? Like everybody will start expecting that, hey, like Roshan is doing our marketing, Roshan is doing our marketing. Now, you can't make yourself available for all of these people, right? So that's where I hated, and we realized like things cannot scale beyond this, even if you have like proper processes and all that in place. So that's where we took a decision that let's productize the version of services that we are providing, because we already had a clear idea about like what kind of problems we are trying to solve when we start engaging with any with any startups. So that starts with like basic fundamental of which kind of keywords I should rank for on Google. How do I track them, and how do I distribute my content? So that's the exact base that we considered for building the product, and we started from that, from the keyword research or the keyword tracker part itself. And then we consistently kept building more and more things which were complementary or like could fetch more revenue from a particular customer, which typically works in the SaaS. So within a year, I think we were able to cross around $1.3 million in ARR, because again, like I leveraged all the connections from the previous customers that we used to work with, and every single customer could contribute like more than like $2,000 to $3,000 worth of ticket size each month. So yeah, that was fairly easy for us to shift into product and scale it.
Right. So if I hear you correctly, it's about building in a domain that you know and you understand, and building for the customers perhaps that you are already serving, right? That makes it an easier transition. As a background to talking about Dukaan, right, I want to talk about e-commerce itself from a merchant perspective and how it has kind of evolved. I see this in three phases. One, you had the Amazon kind of a phase where obviously you listed on a marketplace and you were one of the hundreds or thousands of people, and that had its own pros and cons, right? I mean, you had a wider market access, but then, I mean, you were at the whims and fancies of an algorithm. Then you had the Shopify phase, right, where you could build a storefront yourself through something like a Shopify, and there are obviously there are others, but the Shopify is the largest. Yeah. Now you have a different sort of a wave, right, emerging, which is the non-Amazon and the non-Shopify sort of a space, right? What are some of the key trends in this space? What are merchants really looking for that an Amazon or a Shopify cannot serve?
So I don't think like this is a third trend, but we are like pretty much like Shopify itself. Like either you are selling on the marketplace or you are selling at your own. Second part is what Shopify focuses on, and the first part which Amazon and Swiggy and Zomato, these kind of companies focus on. The trend is, since you know that Amazon and Flipkart, it's kind of owning the high street by themselves, and all the sellers who are trying to list on those platforms, those are the corner stores. And it is up to Amazon that like which seller will get like more orders and more visibility, for which you have to spend. So ideally, like, or technically, you are spending twice. First, you want to get listed on the Amazon, which is at like free of cost, of course. But then if you want more and more sales, then you have to start spending on the Amazon ads. In case of Flipkart, it's Flipkart ads. Swiggy does have this the Swiggy ads as well. Secondly, you have to pay the commissions as well. So if you calculate everything, you end up paying like in the bracket of 30 to 40%. And ultimately, you don't even know like who is the customer, because you don't get to keep the customer data. That is owned by the Amazon. So in the long term, if you want to run or own your own destiny, then you need to have your own store, or the whole e-commerce portal where you actually know that who are making the purchase and what can be sold for those businesses in the future. Because I don't think like there are any kind of businesses as we speak today who are profitable from day one itself, unless you are running a service agency, right? So people expect that all the money that they will be making is on the retention, right? Like if my product quality is good, then I expect that, okay, like the guy will order more frequently, and that's where like I would make money. So I don't worry about spending more money on like initial sales. So this is not possible if you go with the aggregators. They will track all your orders and everything, right? Like for example, if you are say diaper company, or even in case of people like Big Basket, right? Like they have started producing all this whole atta and wheat and all that by themselves, because they know that like, okay, for this product, this much demand is there. And for aggregators to scale up their profits, they don't have any other option apart from either scaling your commissions, or maybe launching the same brand under your own, or maybe just force the next brand to acquire you. I'm sure you must have heard the stories of diapers.com and things like that. So that's the real threat, that like tomorrow Amazon can simply copy your product and you are out of business. In fact, like one of my friend who used to sell tea tree oils on Amazon, first their policies with reviews and everything are like pretty strict. So what happened is like one of the competitor posted like some 10-15 negative reviews, which again like is easy to manipulate, and the sudden rating dropped from crazy. Now you can't tie your business in somebody's hand who is trying to play evil with you, and you are like suddenly out of picture. So that kind of things are like absolutely not possible when you control your own destiny, which is what we are focusing on. That how do we provide the whole e-commerce infrastructure for someone who wants to get started for the first time, or maybe someone who wants to scale things from where they are at this point of time. So yeah, that's the learning from what is happening.
Yeah, there's a wonderful podcast of Mark Lowry, who is the co-founder of Jet.com, and I think he was also the founder of Diapers.com as well.
Yes.
And how he went up against Amazon and everything Amazon did and so on. So that's an interesting podcast that people can check out. So you have this idea that there's clearly a problem with this and that you can solve, right? And how do you go from idea to product to company with Dukaan? What are some of the popular use cases that you are serving today, and who are your customers?
So initially, when we started with the approach that we took was, let's go completely horizontal. So it was a plain system where after verifying your OTP, every seller will get one unique link, and you can just start uploading your products. So that's what like at least I thought that like that's the audience that I'm building for. But from very next day, I started getting a calls, and the use cases were like totally different, right? Like for instance, somebody called me and he said, "Sir, I'm providing outstation cab services and I've added product as well, but your system is not letting me choose the metric as per kilometer. You have per gram, per milliliter and all that." I was like, oh no, I didn't imagine this service use case. Now the guy would ask you for the features like, hey, can I allow my customers to schedule an appointment and things like that. So that service category, the whole service category, then we explored that there are people who are selling salon at home and spa at home and things like that. Although that's not our focus. Then another use case is the kirana or offline retail, all the restaurants and people who are selling groceries and so on. Then a lot of new age entrepreneurs who are trying to do things like drop shipping. For example, an 16, 17 years old kid who has like some 15,000 followers, she sold scrunchies worth more than 80,000 rupees last month. Now that's the audience which is like middle of the funnel, which who has the understanding of how the digital marketing works. Because setting up the store is one part and being capable of driving the orders is another part. Like pretty much like all the startups, right? Like all of hundreds of thousands of startups get funded, but how many of them are actually able to drive the traction which could grow the company further? So it's pretty much the same scenario here. So coming back to the same point, like the initial approach, as I told you, we took the horizontal approach, and the problem that we were fixing was the cataloging. Now that part itself is so challenging because based upon which category business you are, the way you upload products become totally different. For example, in case of groceries, right, like you would have like 2,500 plus SKUs, and if I ask you to upload each SKU one by one, first, all the sellers won't be able to click the good picture, which is the essential part when the buyers wants to make any transactions on the store. Second part, that process itself is like too long. Now, how do you make sure that like people are able to upload their whole inventory within short amount of time on the platform? To solve that problem, what we came up with is the feature called Magic Upload, where we ask users to just click the picture of shelf and we will detect all the products that are there on the shelf. So that's how we solve the problem for one of the major category where we are getting the traction from. Secondly, for the restaurants or apparel kind of categories, it becomes like even more complex, right? Like for example, in case of restaurants, they would ask for the things like add-ons. Now, few of the add-ons are mandatory. Like Subway would ask you like, okay, first you choose the bread and then the veggies and then the sauce and things like that. Versus add-ons like Szechuan chutney, who is going to cost you extra, versus things like extra sambar, right? So how do you build a generic system which is applicable for all these people? So that's the problem that we try to solve for the first 8 to 9 months. The way it happens is like on onboarding itself, we ask you like from which category the seller you belong to, and based upon that the whole features gets customized for that particular category. So for example, if you choose restaurants as a category, you will get additional features like generating the barcodes for your table, and you can have the whole dining operating system built on top of the car. So yeah, that's what we focused on in the initial month.
Right. Just hearing the multiple use cases, right? I mean, it seems so diverse, really. I mean, it's so complex to even think of productizing all of these things, right? So what is the approach you're taking? Are you saying that, here are like 10 use cases and this perhaps covers 80% of our market and we will focus on that, and whatever else, I mean, we will kind of add it on the go, or is there a method to, how you think about product and stuff?
So what we are thinking is we will just focus on the core commerce part, which is like how do we make sure that all the stores are live 24/7 without any delay, which opens like pretty fast and everything can work on the mobile itself. So reliability and the scale is like what we are trying to optimize for at this point of time, and let rest of the people build all the themes and plugins and everything which could extend the capability of your Dukaan store. Like for example, we currently have somewhere around 20 plugins which allows you to do like lots and lots of things on your Dukaan store. Like for example, you can build your own email list, or maybe integrate Google Analytics or Intercom chat and these kind of things. So coming back to the same statement that you had, like this system seems complex. Now the complexity is dependent upon which kind of user you are trying to deal with. Now here the whole game is all about like how ambitious the next guy is to launch his own store. So think of like some guy from third tier city of India who is trying to digitize for the first time. First, he will learn like how to add one product. Now, once he adds like more than 10, 15 products, he can feel the need of, hey, can I upload my 100 products at once? So there he will try to find, hey, do they have like some bulk upload kind of features? Then he will ask for, hey, can I keep a track of my live inventory? Then after like 6 months, 8 months, when he learns, okay, like these are the different order status codes and this is how the e-commerce works and everything, he must have like passed the limit of GST. And now then he will start asking you, hey, can I generate the GST invoice and all that? So that journey itself of individual user is gradual in this case. Certain cases directly the FMCG companies would come to Dukaan and like start using the platform. So for example, Nivea is using Dukaan all across their distributors in India, and their use case is totally different. So what they have done is like they have set up a store for each of their distributor, and they have forced their retailers to place the order through this digital store. Because traditionally what used to happen is like they would employ like 10, 15 people who would go on the ground and take the orders. Now Nivea has realized is like, even if I go on the ground, the seller is placing the order 90% of time, like whatever he has already decided. Only 10% of the time I am able to push the new SKUs of Nivea. So how, like, why do I invest in that like 90% inefficiency if the same thing can happen on the digital. So that's their approach. So platforms remains the same, but the use case is different, and international brand is running their operations on the web. Totally different example, like from.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, okay, now as a merchant, I have a storefront, right? How do I find customers? So how do you see that behavior on the platform? How, do you actively try to solve for discovery through like a marketplace or something of that sort? Or do you help them on that front?
No, so we don't have any marketplace or anything. We just provide you the whole e-commerce infrastructure and all the tools which are required to market yourself. For example, you would find a lot of creatives and graphics inside your account which can be used for the promotion. You can create like different discounts and coupon codes and so on. Then one of the latest feature that we have launched is called SMS broadcast. Now what happens is like if you have done 6,000 orders or like some X orders at your own, you can broadcast one message to all your existing customers and tell them about the new offer. So that's the kind of like, small kind of tools which can create the maximum impact which we are trying to build at this point of time. The demand generation part is being done by the merchant by themselves. So Nivea like companies, they have the dedicated team who does all these marketing campaigns and everything for themselves, versus an Instagram influencer. She's smart enough to make all the reels which could go viral and get more visibility, versus really small people who are still don't know like any ABC of e-commerce. We have the whole tutorial section where people could just learn how things works and all that.
Right. And will you be layering some kind of services on top of this, or things like financing or something like that?
Yes, in the near future, yes. Like once we have significant user base and the transaction volumes and so on. But right now, the whole focus is on like just growing that audience and scaling the e-commerce part itself.
Right. It's amazing to see the enthusiasm to sell to small businesses because, I remember a time when nobody wanted to touch this particular market segment, right? Because it's seen as such a challenge to sell to these people. There's this impression that they don't really pay well and they're extremely demanding and everything. What is your experience selling to, small business owners?
I don't think like we sell to anybody and like at least what I expected in the beginning is like we'll have to go on the ground, pretty much like how IndiaMart does, right? Like you have to have tea, coffee with these sellers for like 3, 4, 5 times before they actually pay for your service. But what has changed during this COVID is like they have realized the value of digital. So I think that's the scare which people are like now paying for. People who already have confirmed that, okay, like this is the way that I want to go ahead in the business. And see, like in almost all the families, there is at least one kid who understands how the digital works and everything. What we want is just to get in front of that kid and the kid convinces dad. Like for example, I spoke with one guy who sold around 600 Rakhi and he was just 17 years old kid. And he's like, "Maine dad ko samjha diya pura, he will process all the orders and everything." And that's the exact generation who will start their businesses. Now, imagine yourself being the oldest kid in the family, and now you have options like want to continue with your dad's kirana shop or you want to do the drop shipping. You would always go for the drop shipping because you don't want to put a lot of efforts. You don't want to be there on the ground and find the space for your store and then figure out the sourcing, have 4 people on the work and all that. Now you want to sit in the town and like or the village and you want to sell across the globe, which is possible, and they have realized. And to see like whether this kind of trend is already there. You remember, this unboxing guy MKBHD, right? Now he started all this unboxing and all that, but in India today, there are like at least thousands of YouTubers who does all this unboxing and all that, and like, a lot of them are from 2nd tier, 3rd tier cities of India. And they have figured out their own hacks. Like they'll just go to the nearby store, they'll just borrow the phone, and they'll say, "Sir, I'll give you the credit at the end of video." That is already happening. So that's the exact audience that we are building for, like tomorrow's entrepreneur or like someone who wants to just start entrepreneurship for the first time on the internet. And secondly, all the established brands who now have realized the value. So cover all the D2Cs and the legacy brands. That's the TG that we have.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think YouTube and TikTok, for example, right? I mean, really exposed the amount of talent and, the sheer, how proactive people are in tier 2, tier 3 cities, because a lot of things we take for granted living in urban areas, right? And they actually find real value in all of the stuff that the internet enables. So, you have a freemium model, right? And how has that been like, in terms of monetizing your freemium? So are there like, 2 or 3 things that have worked particularly well for you? How do you engineer, converts to a paid model from the free plan?
Right. So we have 2 plans. One is quarterly and second is the annual plan. The problem in India for the SaaS companies to monetize is capturing the recurring payment. And you have to be like very cautious about setting up the price and all that. So initially when we launched the premium plan, it was just 4,999, and then we scaled it to 6,999, but there was no impact at all in terms of the conversions and all that. So absolutely people are paying. Whoever has the intent to use that service, if that is adding value for his life, then of course people are paying. I don't think like Indians are exceptions for using the SaaS services, if especially the one who are adding value or adding sales or adding more revenue for their business, and not just helping you with like some sort of utility. There people would not pay. Like for example, if tomorrow share it kind of apps starts charging people, I know like people won't pay for the utilities, but if someone is helping you to make extra money, then absolutely yes. So we didn't see like any hurdle as such when it comes to monetization. In fact, like last month itself, we crossed $1 million in ARR. This month we'll cross like $2 million in ARR. So from that revenue growth, I think clearly people are paying. Like more than 3,000 people have already paid for the Dukaan premium subscription. And without having the telecalling team, everything happens on just a press subscribe button. The pop-up will come. You'll just have to pay for the software.
Right. So you don't have a sales team?
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Sales team is there for different service that we have called Dukaan Infinity, which is, once we figure out that somebody has done 100, 200 orders at their own, which means like we now know that like who has found their own product market fit. Because think this way, like tomorrow you set up your Dukaan store and you started selling Parle-G biscuits, and you spend like 10,000 rupees on Facebook ads and nobody bought it because you can't sell Parle-G on Facebook. But what if like tomorrow you start selling some unique bottles where you are seeing like 30% ROIs on Facebook ads? So there will reach out to you and will help you to grow from like 1 to n. That's where like the second part comes in the picture, where we help all the customers to generate more demand, for which there is like different pricing model altogether.
Right. We briefly touched upon the Bharat user, right? I mean, the folks in the tier 2, tier 3 who are new internet users, a product of the Jio revolution, you could say, right? What are some principles for building for this user? What are some do's and don'ts in your experience? What have you seen them do on your app that could potentially inform people who are trying to build for these users?
I think that will vary, case to case. In our case, we know that like we are going after people who are trying to run their businesses on the internet. So like this guy should be able to at least read English or basic English. Like if like WhatsApp doesn't have like WhatsApp Bharat version, or Facebook doesn't have like Facebook for Bharat. So if people could understand Facebook and WhatsApp without being present in those many languages, I think like Dukaan is pretty much the same. Like if you use all the common terminologies and all that, like if you don't call revenue but call it total sales, then that is like just built for Bharat. Few additional or the crucial points which a lot of companies miss is the performance part, the speed, and whether the app is functional on 2G or like the slow networks and things like that. That should be the focus, and like multiple devices, slow and Android phones and all that. So the platform has to be optimized across like multiple resolutions and the internet speeds. That's the basic of it. I don't think like the language part is applicable for us, although like we have like more than 5 languages support, but majority of the people are using English itself. So yeah, it's not technically like for Bharat, but.
Right. So as a founder, what are some key challenges that you are solving right now to enable that next level of growth for you, and where do you hope to be in the next, 24 months?
So the revenue is the most North Star metric for us at least this point of time. As I told you, like we already crossed $1 million. $10 million is what we are aiming for in the next 24 months ARR. Where I'm spending most of my time is on the hiring part, because now all the top management team and exploring like multiple verticals. So there have been like experiments around Dukaan International. Like we in fact like launched in US just a couple of days back and started already getting the premium customers from there. So yeah, that's the whole focus right now. That how do we grow the revenue, the transacting users base, and multiple other experiments which could be helpful in the long run.
Right. Have you had to add anything or do something different, for your launch in the US?
So yes, so the integration with the shipment company, which is called Shippo, and some aggregators there, and then the payments part where we have integrated Stripe plus PayPal. So it's just an experiment. It's not full blown launch yet. Just want to understand like how the things would work. But surprisingly, on the day first itself, we got like one sale, and the guy moved from Shopify, which is the good signal if somebody is moving from Shopify to Dukaan. So yeah, let's see how it unfolds.
Nice. Yeah, to kind of round things up, I'd love to get your advice to young entrepreneurs who are perhaps listening to this podcast, right? What has worked for you and how can they do their own journey?
I think all you have to do is just keep experimenting, and just don't listen to what your friends and family says, like why this will work and why this will not work. Just go ahead and like try it. Either it will work, either you will learn something, and just keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much work for us. In fact, like all the things that we are now doing in Dukaan, we realize that like we have done the same thing like at least like 3 4 5 times back in the past. Like for example, when we didn't have the approval from the WhatsApp business, I had to go and like buy at least 30 SIM cards every single day, because we want to keep running all this WhatsApp come message sending infra on the hacky way, right? So just keep doing all the things, and things will fall in place eventually. Trust the process. That's it.
Right. You had an interesting tweet out recently, right? And I'll just read part of the tweet. It says, scaling is absolutely meaningless if you're not able to build a sustainable business model that could extract the profits out of scale. Anyone can scale if they have funds. I think that's a amazing quote. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah. So what I've recently seeing all across, especially from India, is a lot of pre-revenue companies are there who are just scaling valuations, but nobody actually has the real business model. That how would you justify all these valuations going in long term? And I've been a part of startups like Housing and Tiny Owl, where I've seen like the worst part of it. So that's why, like as they say, like should absolutely focus on the revenues, although everybody will just keep telling you revenues are not important and the business model. So the early you figure it out, all the spends that you are making would make more sense, right? Like what if tomorrow Dukaan decides to build a social commerce platform, which we already have, and spend like 70% of my or like 30% of the fund. If I realize that like later on that like nobody can pay for this service, or I cannot make money out of that, like that whole spend is worthless, and I will be at the position where either I have to do the down round or shut down the company. And firing people, it's not a good experience, as you must have heard of the examples in the last couple of days. In the long run, as soon as you should figure out the business model and revenue part. Once you figure out, then
you also Yeah. No, do you also feel that I think with the availability of money, people are doing a lot more experiments than kind of focusing on the core business and making that work, properly?
See, like as you know, like we are living in totally weird worlds, and the whole world is being driven by FOMO, be it a crypto, be it a Instagrammer who has 100 followers and blue tick. Everybody has their own FOMOs, right? Where to spend, how to spend, nobody's going to advise anybody, because it's a bull run. You will realize, or there's this quote like, when the tide is low, you will understand who was swimming naked. So let's wait for the low tide, and we will understand who spent absolutely worthless. Because running the IPL ads and spending millions of dollars on the Facebook ads and Google AdWords, just a button press away, and anybody can do it at any point of time. But when to do it, that's significantly important.
Right. So before we leave you, any books or podcasts that you recommend?
Not really. Like I'm like I recently started listening to podcasts and all that, and the books, like didn't read anything in the last 6 months, so I don't remember anything. But yeah, if I have to recommend someone on the podcast, then of course like I can recommend one of the smart guy or the founder that I know, Sanket from InVideo.
We've already had him. Oh, very nice. He was amazing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Cool.
So this was awesome, Sumit. Thank you so much again for spending your time with us and sharing your insights. And all the best for everything that you have coming up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite platform and share this episode with all of your fellow startup operators. Also, follow the Startup Operator on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon on a brand new episode of the Startup Operator.